My name is Deirdre McClay and I'm Head of Teaching and Learning on the Donegal campuses, and I'm chairing this session, which is Digital Transformation in Teaching, Learning and Assessment. You're very welcome, everybody in the room here, and also I'm aware there are a lot of people online too. You're very welcome too. So there are 5 speakers in this session. Thank you very much to all of them. Each talk will be around 20 minutes, and that will include questions and answers at the end of each. So I'm very pleased to welcome our first speaker, who is Yvonne Sarsfield, an instructional designer at ATU. And her talk is Beyond the Hype, Trials, Triumphs and Lessons from Piloting Emerging Technology in Higher Education. Thank you, Yvonne.
Oh, hi. Okay, so welcome everyone to my presentation, Beyond the Hype, Trials, Triumphs and Lessons from Piloting Emerging Tech in Higher Education. And my name is Yvonne Sarsfield and I'm an instructional designer at ATU based on the Sligo campus. And I work on the Advanced Centre project, so that's professional education for digital transformation. And this is a HEA funded project, another of the HCI Pillar 3 projects. It was founded in 2020 and it will be ending in March 2025. It's a partnership with UCD, ATU Sligo and TU Dublin. And the overarching aims of Advanced Centre are to identify and address the future skills and needs in industry, with a focus on digital transformation skills in industry, in engineering in particular, and to be more flexible by offering modular courses. And as a result, Advanced Centre now offers a suite of accredited digital transformation focused modules, special purpose awards and micro-credentials from level 6 to level 9. And these are supported by industry partners who advise on trends and needs in industry. So if you want some further information, you can visit the Advanced Centre website, advancedcentre.ie, or scan the QR code. I'll just talk now about the instructional design objectives. So my role, I joined Advanced Centre just over 2 years ago now. So my objectives are, again, with a focus on digital transformation, to research and identify appropriate new technologies, evaluate the practical and technical environment for teaching and learning, run pilots for assessment and to consider suitability, recommend suitable digital resources to enhance learning, boost student engagement and facilitate innovative teaching methods, and to organise and make available these technologies and resources. And also to have a legacy, create a legacy that's both enduring and transformative, guiding the success of future projects. So just look at some of the technology that I am using. So MetaQuest VR headsets, I've got 20 of those. HTI Vive VR headset, the HoloLens AR, MR, augmented reality headsets and dynamic guides license, which comes with that. A Ricoh Theta 360 camera, DJI Mavic drone, Manage XR, which is a headset management and deployment package, Wanda VR platform, which is for creating VR spaces, Virtual Speech, which is soft skills VR courses, and ThingLink, which is a multimedia platform. So we'll just look at a few of the projects that I've been working on. This first one, Digital Construction Technology module, and this is part of the BSc Honours Construction Project Management Programme. So I was working with a lecturer on this as part of the InTutor project, where the objective for the students was to, and the lecturer was to transform the learning experience in this module to create a more hands-on approach. And the key focus areas, particular practical application of technology and software, and that's where I came in. The encouragement of student collaboration through student-led design and project management assignment. And then the outcomes of that, I did some guest lectures and demonstrations where around the virtual reality and drone technology and also the ThingLink platform, and just helping the students to maybe decide on how they could use these new technologies in their assignment. As a result, the students did actually use ThingLink, virtual reality, and some drone footage as well that was provided. So it's a good example as well of an alternative assessment method. Another project in progress at the moment is automation training, and this is using an integrated VR simulator on this Cyrus software, and this is using the HTC Vive headset. So with a simple button click, it sends learners to a 3D world, and it simulates complex factory automation equipment mechanisms and processes. And it allows us to train without any risk to people or equipment, and enables location-independent learning. Another project, I was working with 4 lecturers on the Six Sigma module. And this module is part of the BSc in Manufacturing Management, and it's also part of ATU's award-winning Six Sigma Green Belt course as well. So this was a scenario-based learning activity, and it was to teach the 5 whys problem-solving tool, which is currently being taught in a more traditional way in class with case studies. And the objective was to develop a tool to foster real-life skill development with online students. The key focus areas to allow learners to actively engage in problem-solving processes and to provide multiple learning paths with immediate feedback, proactively adapt to the evolving needs of learners. And the outcomes of this, I created an activity using the Thingling platform. It's an interactive scenario-based learning activity. There are, I think, 13 scenario pathways that the students can explore and receive immediate feedback at the end of those. The activity yielded highly successful results, and there are plans in place now to take this further and to add some VR activities in there as well in the next phase. Also using the HoloLens headset that I mentioned, which is augmented reality, mixed reality, it allows us to overlay digital content onto the physical world, enabling the user to interact with 3D holograms in real time. This project, which is in progress, one of our academic staff is actually working with us in the Advanced Centre to create an engineering virtual learning aid. And this will be a real-life example, a digital twin CAD model. And this will be used across several subject modules, and it will be a reusable learning object. I also mentioned Dynamic Guides, which again is a license for creating, allows me to create hands-free operating guides. As you can see in the image there, you put your headset on, the holograms of the screens appear next to you. You can pick them up and move them around. There are holograms of dotted lines with arrows and buttons that help you to navigate your way through the step-by-step instructions and know which buttons to press. The first thing that we did was to create a storyboarding template, again, a reusable learning object, which we could then use across multiple guides that we were creating. So at the moment we're creating Mazak CNC machine guides, operating guides there, and guides for a 3D printing machine, and also operation guides for the actual drone as well. We have a couple of external collaboration projects as well. One with First Polymer Training, SkillsNet. It was a VR experience that they had already developed themselves, and it's training on their polymer 3D printing process from basic setup and maintenance through to interactive troubleshooting. And we first deployed the VR experience onto our Advanced Centre headsets, and we incorporated that into one of our existing Level 6 modules. And the plan now is to develop a set of dynamic guides, as you've just seen in the last slide, and that we're going to have that as an option as well to use those for the maintenance and troubleshooting as well. And also a similar project with DCU. They have a VR experience which they've already developed on one of their metal 3D printing pieces of equipment, and I'll be developing some AR guides as well to be used with the headset. And this will be used as a case study to look at the VR experience as opposed to the AR experience and do some comparisons. Again, some of the headings along the bottom there, we'll just look at, compare one to the other. The plan probably will be to use the completely immersive experience, the VR experience for Level 6, and then move on to the AR guides for maybe level 7 and level 8, where students then have actually some interactivity with the actual physical piece of equipment. So that's something we're working on at the moment. We'll have some bit more kind of information on that towards the end of the project. So just looking at some of the initial set of challenges that I had coming into the project, I had come from an instructional design background, but very little knowledge of these new technologies. So there was a very steep learning curve, mastering complex technology. A lot of research was required to learn and to stay updated. Very time-intensive training and courses. And then once we get through that, the software committee approval and data protection screening, which was necessary as well, that was quite challenging. Again, I had limited knowledge of the requirements for that. And this proved to be quite a lengthy and quite a complex process. I didn't realize quite how long it would take to get through all of this. It's extremely important to do, but it was very time consuming. And yeah, it tested my skills a bit. Also, moving on to procurement, that again was part of my role. I didn't really have any experience of that, so procurement training was needed, and training on Aggresso and raising POs and all of that. So again, more time needed for that. The infrastructure that I had to work with, again, as we all know, it's highly restricted and locked down. Our devices are locked down, which can pose some challenges when you're trying to be innovative. Lots of issues around Wi-Fi connection with the headsets in particular. Just having the physical space on campus for demonstrations and storage, that would have been good, to have one room that was already set up and you knew everything was working, rather than, as I had to do, move from different places around the campus. And then just little things like having access to maybe a project credit card. Had one initially, and then again, just due to locking things down, not quite as easy to get hold of. And if you just simply wanted to run out and buy an SD card, as I did one day, you can't really do that. You have to go through the process, and again, that kind of slows things down a bit. And as well, maybe having a work mobile for a lot of the apps that I was using, that would have been useful as well in hindsight. And again, restricted access to the Microsoft Store. So some of these are quite little things that can be easily fixed. Support was a challenge. Very few colleagues with relevant knowledge that could assist me in work, some of the projects that I was working on. Insufficient support for resources, for new technology in general. And again, limited IT assistance too, because a lot of the technology is new to those as well. So as a result, a lot of the problem solving fell to me. So I spent many hours, trying to figure out things and being, on help desks with the Manage XR, for example, trying to get things set up. So some of the more general challenges. And again, I've spoken to others in similar roles to myself, in particular across the HCI projects. These are all very similar issues that we have across the board. And again, I think it's down to the fact this is new technology and we're at that initial stage. I'm sure a lot of this will be resolved in time. So it kind of is reassuring in a way to know that it's not just me, it's not just ATU. This is quite common across the board. The technical issues, inconsistent access to the necessary tech and network issues, training and ongoing support needed for the new technologies, gaining faculty commitment and buy-in. Again, we all know academic staff are very time poor, so getting them on board was a challenge. Making sure to clearly link the technology to enhancing the learning outcomes and making sure it was adding value there. Again, varying levels of interest and comfort and expertise among faculty members. And it made it a bit more difficult for me to, where to pitch when, some people had a lot more knowledge than others. Ensuring the content is easy to adopt and intuitive to use for all learners, and making sure that it's UDL compliant. Another really important area that that we need to make sure that is as compliant as possible. The scalability, success in small pilots, again, can falter at scale because we know there are logistical and resource constraints there. So yeah, that is a challenge. Inadequate technical and instructional support resources. There really isn't that support there at the moment. And financial costs associated with implementing, updating and maintaining content and technology. There are high costs involved there. Bespoke content creation at the moment within HEU, it needs to be outsourced, so it does prove to be quite expensive. So one problem that I had, and I very quickly realised I needed to find a solution for it, was when I was working with multiple headsets and multiple students, and while I had one person with their headset on, another 5 students had gone into a VR experience or a chat room that they weren't supposed to be in, because as you can see in the top picture, out of the box, that is the home screen on the headsets. So there are lots of preloaded VR experiences and apps available. So it was really important for me to be able to lock that down. And one of the features on ManageXR, which is the management and deployment system that I implemented for this, it allows for kiosk mode. You can see in the bottom picture there, I can lock it down completely, and I can group the headsets. Different groups of headsets I can deploy different content to those headsets, and it's completely locked down, so the students can only access what's on the screen that I've already preloaded. Lots of other features there that I haven't got time to go through, but that was really, really important for me to have that. Again, I mentioned VR content. Just an interesting fact here, to produce a polished 30 minutes of immersive VR content, there is a significant investment of time and budget, and the entire development process could span approximately 3 months from initial concept to final product, and the cost is in the region of 30,000, and that's to cover all the necessary expenses for that 30 minutes. So you can see it is really expensive, and it would be great to have this in-house at some point. Lessons learned, focus on making the technology user-friendly and intuitive, ensuring a smooth adoption process for all users. Utilise readily available apps and content for quick wins, reducing development and time and effort. So there are lots of apps available there, so that's great to be able to take those off-the-shelf apps and use those. Making sure to develop editable and adaptable content that can be seamlessly integrated into a module. It's very time-consuming to create something, so when you do, make sure that it's editable and we can reuse it as much as possible, across multiple modules. Making sure to collaborate with faculty and IT teams from the outset to ensure alignment, address potential concerns, and facilitate a smoother implementation, and offer comprehensive and ongoing training sessions to maximise the effective use of technology and encourage adoption. And again, this is all in an ideal world. Probably haven't got the resources there at the moment, but yeah, hopefully this will come in time, and ensure that the technology directly supports and enhances the learning outcomes of the module. Establish technical and instructional support systems to assist users throughout the implementation and beyond. There are lots of instructional designers around that are more than willing to be involved in this going forward, and we would all love to be able to continue in this work and offer that support that's needed. The Advanced Centre, the legacy of that, increased digital competency, enhanced teaching and learning resulting in improved outcomes, help to foster a sustainable digital culture, increase collaboration, valuable insights to inform future projects, and a repository of digital resources and assets which I'm working at the moment on a Moodle page. But also we will have all of the hardware that we looked at, all the headsets and all that will be available as well. And just to end on a positive note, all of the feedback from both students and academic staff has been really, really positive. There's so much enthusiasm out there for this technology. It's not going anywhere. So yeah, it's really good to see that there is that excitement out there for it. So that's it. Thank you very much. And I'm open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for a really interesting talk. We have time for a few quick Questions? Anybody, any questions?
Any questions? Yeah.
Yvonne, that was really fascinating. The amount of work that you've done has just been incredible. It seems to be kind of like a pilot, that there was a number of degree programs or certificate programs that you used, and then you mentioned scalability, and the costs are phenomenal. Like, what are the plans, like from an ATU perspective going forward? Is there a plan? It nearly sounds like this should be a full function department in itself.
Yes, I think we agree with that. Yes, I'm not aware of any plans at the moment for taking this further. Within HU Sligo, there is an AR/VR room being fitted out at the moment within the Faculty of Engineering, and hopefully some of this hardware will be housed there. But beyond that, I'm not aware of any other projects at the moment that will allow for more work in this area. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that something will come.
Yeah, because I mean, you're one person.
Yes.
So you really need, and even though you said the instructional designers would be more than happy to roll in, but you're there, up to their tonsils as well with their own work. So
yeah,
I really do hope you get the funding to support this. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Do you have a question? No? Anyone else with a question?
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yvonne. Our next speaker is Gabriel Farragher, ATU. Thank you, Gabriel. So Gabriel is going to talk to us about virtual commissioning of an intelligent conveyor system using a digital twin. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm going to talk about virtual commissioning of an intelligent conveyor system using a digital twin. And the theme is around digital transformation in teaching and learning. So my name is Gabriel Farragher. I'm an assistant lecturer here in ATU Galway, and I teach mainly in the automation and digital manufacturing space. So the agenda is the purpose of the research, a little bit on my background, some of the academic challenges we face as automation lecturers, the importance of programmable automation controllers, and I'll lift one up here to show the online viewers. What are intelligent conveyor systems, and the importance of edge computing for OT as opposed to IT. Virtual commissioning, we're going to look at what that is, and a proof of concept, which I did earlier on the year, of a smaller system, and how that all ties into digital transformation in teaching and learning. So this research is part of a master's which I'm currently undertaking with TUS. TUS used to be called LIT. And my research supervisor is Dr. John Cosgrove, and he's the head of graduate studies. He mainly connects industry with research going on in the college. So my own background is I started off as an electrician in 2005, and I worked in a few different sectors. And in 2013, then I was introduced to a lens manufacturer here in Galway, and they were highly automated. So they, in 2016, installed an intelligent conveyor system, but there wasn't really much talk of digital twins around that time. Now in 2019, then I joined ATU Galway, and we set up a new program for industry, students who work in industry. And we kitted out our labs with some expensive hardware that's commonly used in factories around the region, such as KUKA cells, Fanuc cells, we have a Mecha 500, we have the Compact Logics, Control Logics, PLCs, Cognix, Stratix, IEI technology, IFM. And these are all commonly used technologies in the manufacturing space. So we were lucky to get support from Boston Scientific and Thermo King. They gave us substantial financial support and advice on how to set up the lab. And the challenge going forward is industry is always moving on. There's new technologies. And how do we keeping our students up to date with the new technologies? So that's kind of what this presentation and research is about. So the question is, how can we as automation lecturers effectively introduce students to advanced manufacturing systems without constantly looking for significant capital investment. So one solution would be to use digital twins. And digital twins enable students to get hands-on experience in advanced manufacturing systems in a cost-effective way, okay, without the need for taking up huge space in a lab or constantly looking for new funds. So the first thing you need to have for digital twins for manufacturing is a programmable automation controller. Okay, now these have come out in around 1968 and they totally changed manufacturing. So these are what controls your robotics, your intelligent conveyor systems, your sensors. Okay, I just have one here and the online people might see it if I hold it here for a sec. But essentially it's a real-time controller that we can power on today and leave it running 7 days a week, 365, and it'll stay running, very reliable, doesn't get hot. They're used all across industry. This one is a Rockwell Automation one, and we use these in our lab. So they're a key component to what we teach. Now, intelligent conveyor systems are the next phase of product transportation in industry. There's companies already in Galway using them. There's 2 companies that I'm aware of. They are quite expensive initially, but there's huge advantages over traditional conveyors. So traditional conveyors typically bring product from machine A to B to C in a linear path. Whereas with these intelligent conveyor systems, you have the capability to bring a product from machine 1 to machine 3. You can skip machine 2. So you may have a premium product and a regular product. That premium product may not need to go through all the different machines, so you can skip a process and it's very precise. So some of the advantages they offer over traditional conveyors is they're very clean. They're made with stainless steel, high-grade steel, so you can wipe them down with IPA, you can hose them down with water, and they don't leave dust or residue in your cleaning room. Now, another advantage of them is the adaptability. So I mentioned that you can send products in different paths. So that's really important if you're sorting products, like in an airport, for example, you have different routes, baggages go in different directions. Now, one of the key things with Industry 5.0 is human-centric manufacturing. And really, intelligent conveyor systems are ideally suited for that. You can have these products running at high speed down a production line. And as the operator gets close, they might need to do an inspection or stop a particular path. When they enter a zone, usually there's a safety scanner. The operator enters the zone, the products all come down to a safe speed. And they may want to take off a product and inspect it. So they're ideally suited for Industry 5.0. They're very low maintenance. They don't have gearboxes. They don't need oiling. They don't need belts replaced. So, you know, it's a sealed system. They're very high precision, okay? So you can move the product at a really, really fine, you know, 0.5 of a millimeter if you require, if you're doing a very particular, you know, welding or something, and you need the product to move in an exact location. And the last thing then is the data you can get off them is really important. Especially for predictive maintenance, you can monitor the voltage, the current, all the speeds, all that information is constantly tracked. And you can have that in the database, which is quite difficult to do with traditional conveyor systems. Now, there's multiple vendors that make them, okay? So my research is on Rockwell Automation's version, but there's one there, we'll say, for example, in the image, and it's called Explainer by Beckhoff Automation. They're a German company, and their carriers hover. So they're actually hovering there, and they can do rotate. So it's a bit like that film, Back to the Future, where he had the skateboard. So that technology is finally here. So these can hover across the production setup. And there's another company in Canada then that have another variation of an intelligent conveyor system called SuperTrack. Now, edge computing is going to be very important because it's basically like your laptop or your PC, but it's a rugged device. So you can install this in a control panel, And it's suitable for the factory floor, which there'll be vibration, there'll be temperature issues. It's ideally built for that environment. But why it's important for digital twins is you can install your digital twin software on this device, and you can run your simulations and keep all that data local to the machine without sending it back to the corporate network. So you're reducing the risk of a cyber attack because you're keeping the systems offline, you're running advanced algorithms locally to the machine, you have your digital twin software installed on this, and you're keeping everything safe. Your company may be doing a sensitive product, they might be doing sensitive trials, there might be very important recipes for whatever they're making. Keep that all local on the OT network as opposed to IT network. Your typical manufacturing is divided up into two networks, your IT networks and your OT. OT is for process automation, and if you can keep the data in that area, it's much safer. So here's an example of what the digital twin software looks like. So this one is Emulate 3D from Rockwell Automation, and it has a library of all the different sections of conveyor, and you build it to represent maybe the lens manufacturers set up here in Tuam. You build your virtual model of their physical model, and you can get students to program it with a physical controller, okay? So you can have this running that virtual model. So virtual commissioning is relatively new for factory automation, but essentially it allows you to build a virtual model, test it, and find issues before the entire project is done. So you get kind of early warnings or diagnose issues before they become a major problem. Okay, so it's similar enough to what Yvonne spoke about on the previous presentation, where they were wearing the VR and you can walk around and interact with different machines and stuff. And essentially you can do the same here with factory automation. So earlier in the year, I did a smaller system using a different software called Simumatic. Simumatic are a Swedish company. They make really good software and they have a really good engagement with universities, okay? So we use these Festo pick and places, which are shown here, the Festo handling machine. We use those in our lab, and I did a virtual model of that. And we were able to run the two models together with one controller. Okay, so that's a big advantage because from a student point of view, we can have mature students at home on a Saturday or Sunday evening, log into the platform, and they can program our equipment, but in a digital environment, okay? So that was the initial tests earlier in the year, which I've just a short video, it's 1 minute 30, and I won't talk over it, I'll just play that and then I'll finish up the presentation. So this is the video here. So essentially, that was an example that I worked on earlier in the year, and it gave me some ideas on what we could do with the intelligent conveyor system. Okay, so there is some challenges which purchasing a physical intelligent conveyor system. They do take up a lot of space, and even if we were only to purchase an intelligent conveyor system about the size of what I'm standing in front of here, this desk, you're looking at about 70,000-80,000 for that sort of technology, because it's high precision, it's industrial grade, and it does tend to last years. But what the research is looking at is the benefits digital twins can do, and how we can effectively introduce students to newer technologies as newer technologies come into industry, and we can develop those virtual models using Emulate 3D or Simumatic. Okay, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Gabriel, for another very interesting high-tech project. Thank you. Any questions from anyone?
Thanks, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Do you find there are challenges in bringing in a new technology like this into an education environment that is becoming much more controlled and managed, customized, or less customized, I suppose?
Yeah, I suppose there's always the challenge of introducing new software, and the risks of maybe what sort of type of data collection these software companies are having, and there's a lot of unknowns as well on relying on that sort of technology if you give access to students remotely or if they're working at home. So there is a lot to be learned there at the moment, I think, from that side anyways. But that smaller system worked out reasonably well because it was very controlled. I worked on it myself, but to roll it out across mature students and stuff will be another learning curve, I suppose, for sure.
Thank you, Gabriel. I had one question too, which I suppose kind of bounces off that one too, on the previous talk maybe. How could future projects be made easier for staff?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose sometimes it can be hard to, go out, get quotes for these systems, find the right software, get it installed, and then having the time to get the end goal, which is to develop these models. They do take a lot of time. So, potentially there could be, an opportunity to give maybe some dedicated hours if there's a big benefit to the wider college, to have a bit more time given. We all tend to do these on top of our normal duties. So I suppose that's probably the hardest thing that I found in that initial project.
Okay, thank you, Gabriel.
I just have one question, I guess. I'm thinking about like some of the challenge you have in terms of, let's say, having the physical equipment and that. Would it be a possibility to like engage with someone in industry who has that technology, that you could then allow your students to test it virtually and say to them, can we come to you and actually run this on, if they have perhaps one that's available for testing, and maybe use that like as either a field trip and an opportunity for students then to go see it in action and stuff like that?
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good idea because industry's always going to have a bit more access to funds because they're driving on their manufacturing processes and they're going to be purchasing this equipment, but they may not have the time to train up people. So we could potentially develop training systems on their hardware, and we're benefiting maybe their technicians and stuff who train that. But I actually think that would be a fantastic way to go about it, because we do work with Thermo King, for example. They have a lab up there, but they have some Fanuc cells which our students go up and use. Okay. But what you're saying is kind of the next step of that, where you work on some other equipment rather than just the robots or the PLCs. But I do see huge potential in that for sure, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Any other questions before we move on to the next person? That was a really good talk, though.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Really interested. Thanks.
The next session is online, isn't it, Kevin? And it's Dr. Una Carthy. So
Just get it set up here. Perfect. Okay, over to you, Deirdre, to just.
I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Una Carthy from ATU, and her talk is Smart Talk Human Capital Initiative Project for Modern Languages. Thank you, Una.
I'm delighted to join you from, believe it or not, a sunny Donegal. Letterkenny is where I'm based at the moment. And it's great to have these opportunities to share our work. Today I'll be talking to you about what I've been doing with my Smart Talk project. And it is wonderful to join you for this year's Digital Ed Conference. So, an overview to my talk now. I'm going to give you some background to the initiative initially. Then I'm going to talk about the language learning apps that are out there already on the market, and I'm sure you're familiar with them. They're very popular. I'm then going to describe the Smart Talk platform, what it looks like. I'm then going to go on to talk about the current status, where we are at the moment. And I will finish off by looking forward into the future and asking how can we build on this initiative. Okay, without any further ado, I'll move on because I know we're running behind schedule. Firstly, some background to the project. So what motivated me to undertake this challenge initially? Well, the decline in languages is there. I don't need to dwell on that, but we're all, I'm sure, reading the news, and we have some idea as to how much languages have plummeted in recent years. We don't have enough students studying them. And there is a skills shortage in the workplace in this area. And so that was one of the reasons I decided to undertake this challenge. Secondly, you see there my PH findings were also an indicator to me that something needed to be done. And while I was undertaking my PhD, there was considerable empirical evidence there to suggest that people disengage from the learning process at primary and secondary level in many cases because they feel that they're not making progress in spoken skills. I'm sure you've heard many people say, oh, I took Irish for whatever years, 12, 13 years, and I can't speak a word of it. Or French for so many years, and I still can't speak it. They have no confidence in speaking the language. So I thought that this was a very strong finding here. And I figured that we have a strong demand in the workplace with skill shortage, and yet we don't have enough people motivated to pursue that pathway. And then finally, you see here the third thing at the bottom of the screen, upskilling in TEL. During lockdown, I did a number of courses, and I trained in the area of virtual exchanges and also in the area of online learning. So I figured that this might be a skill that would help me to solve this problem. And the whole thrust of that was to harness digital platforms in order to create a learning space which might solve this problem. So that's really where I was coming from. The declining languages, the findings from my PhD, and then my own upskilling. And I also had a look at what was out there already in the terms of mobile language learning apps. And there are many of them out there. I'm sure you have used them yourselves, or you know people who are using them. Again, people, there's sort of the gaming aspect in it, your multiple choice and all of that. How much oral skills are developed on those, I don't know. Lotherington did a study on it, and she figures that a lot of them use behaviorist pedagogical theories, repetition and memorization. She even says, and I quote, impoverished pedagogies from half a century ago. What she calls for instead is creativity and imagination among developers. Okay, so that's what led me then to apply for funding, and I was successful. I figured I was connecting in with both the Languages Connect strategy, which is due to finish in 2026, and the digital transformation strategy. So I was hooking in with two strategies there. So it seems to ring a bell at national level. And so basically the thrust of this is the traditional learning pathways are gone in a lot of places, certainly in Letterkenny they are. And how can we widen access across all disciplines so that more students will be motivated to learn languages, and that would enable the government to achieve its goals regarding the upskilling. So on we go. Now, if I need to fast forward, just tell me, please, because I know that I've started late. The team consultation here was across the ATU, Jessica Lizat, Juan Manuel Espinosa, so Jessica in Galway, Juan in Sligo. We had Gerhard Feldmeyer was in there, a long-standing partner in Hochschule Bremerhaven, and then the instructional designers, and of course support from employers locally here in Letterkenny, Zeus and Mac Machinery. So what does this pathway look like? It's aligned to A1 on the Common European Framework. It has live interaction embedded into the learning pathway. So that's what kind of makes it different to a lot of those learning apps out there. I think there's an option in Buzu to have live interaction, but once you opt for it, you have to pay. So it's free until you opt for the live interaction. So there's interwoven delivery with synchronous and asynchronous tools. It uses Articulate Rise, and Blackboard has an integrated live interaction space, unlike Moodle with Blackboard Collaborate. So all of those tools are used in building the platform. So as I've said many times, it's a kind of a couch to 5K mentality. So you're at 0 and you want to be at 5K. So you gradually build up over a 6-week learning pathway. You build up your confidence and you get to a stage where you can speak and you can converse with a native speaker. So that's the idea. An overview of the course, it's over 6 weeks. It has live support and it has assessment. And this is the course structure. You have introductions in your first unit. Second unit moves on to numbers and alphabet. Third unit, family relationships and birthdays. Fourth unit, hobbies, dates and timetables. Fifth unit, travel arrangements. And then finally culminating in a trip to Berlin in unit 6. So we wanted to have some general knowledge and culture embedded in there. The whole idea is that you're aiming for adult learners, so they would be curious about the country. Okay, so we have the weekly online sessions, which are Mentor. They are obviously arranged by appointment at a time that suits both. And during those sessions, you have your practice and feedback. The assessment is weekly, of course, and formative and summative at the very end in week 6. So there is an interim assessment in week 3 with feedback, but the final assessment is the one that you base your, it decides whether or not you have achieved the goals of the learning pathway. Okay, let me introduce you now to our actors and mentors. These are native speakers, Malin Bach and Ben Wagner. So they play the part of Laura and Lucas. And yes, they are a couple in real life, just in case you're wondering. They're meeting for the first time in Bremerhaven and getting to know one another over the course of the learning pathway. So that's Malin and Ben. Then we also have Alia, who plays the part of Ella, and Helen, who plays the part of Siobhan. So Siobhan is actually is a fictive character. She is learning German. So Helen plays her part and Ella is her online mentor. Okay, so units 1 to 6, in each unit you have 2 videos. So the first video would be Laura and Lucas, and the second video is Siobhan and Ella. And so that's to kind of, I suppose the idea of the Siobhan and Ella video is to say, look, Siobhan has no German, and look, she can do it, so can you. So it's empowering the student to go there. So there's a series of exercises: comprehension, grammar, pronunciation. The pronunciation one has an inbuilt feature in H5P. It's not exactly what you'd want it to be. Some of the learners felt that it was giving them negative feedback when in fact a native speaker would have understood them. So it needs to be refined, I think, that particular feature in H5P. So the Landeskunde then at the end is the cultural background knowledge about the country. So the current status, I'll show you a little bit of this if we have time in a moment. I have it opened here. The current status, it's approaching the end of the funding. The A1 pilot was completed last year in May 2023. The A2 Business German is currently being finalized and uploaded. Jessica Lysat took control of that this year using the Deutsch als Fremdsprache im Unternehmen course book there for her transcripts. And where to now? I think we have the seeds here for potential growth. It's a major repackaging of delivery. It's creating a brand new space. It has a wide reach. It is hopefully empowering the learner. So where they may have given up before in the traditional classroom, it's saying, come on, you can do this. We have it in bite-sized chunks. We have regular feedback. It hopefully, fingers crossed, will revitalize language teaching, motivating, encouraging, and stimulating, creating authentic communication, and of course, endless opportunities for practice. So have we time for a little peep into it? I wonder. I'm just going to come out of this and into... Excellent. So that's brought us into Unit 1, as explained there earlier. These are 2 of the actors, Laura and Lucas. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a flavor here. Fingers crossed about the sound. This worked earlier, but we'll see how it goes. You can see there we have captions in English, but you can change them to German if you wish. Okay, English, German, on, off. You can actually turn them off altogether, English or German, whichever you prefer. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of that and see how it goes.
Entschuldigung, wie komme ich zur Mensa? Ich kenne mich hier nicht so gut aus.
Hallo, sind Sie neu hier? Die Mensa ist im Haus nebenan.
Danke. Ja, ich bin neu hier.
Ich heiße Lukas. Wie heißen Sie?
Ich heiße Laura. Du kannst mich aber duzen, Lukas.
Woher kommst du, Laura?
Ich komme aus München. Und du?
Ich komme aus Freiburg. Wo wohnst du in Bremerhaven?
Nicht weit von hier, in der Ludwigstraße. Und du?
Ich wohne etwa eine Stunde von hier, in Osterholz-Scharmbeck.
Das kenne ich nicht. Wie schreibt man das?
Sterholz Scharmbeck.
Freut mich, dich kennenzulernen. Hast du Hunger? Ich gehe gleich essen.
Tut mir leid, ich muss zur Vorlesung. Vielleicht nachher?
Okay. Ich gehe zur Bibliothek und warte auf dich. Bis bald.
Okay, so that just gives you a little bit of a flavor. It's gone straight into the comprehension questions there. So it's a sort of a tick the correct box, and then you get feedback. If you have clicked the wrong option, it will say, do you want to try again? Or if you get really frustrated, it will actually give you the right answer. So you have a series of those kinds of exercises embedded into each video. And so I think, unless you want to see any more of the platform, I think perhaps it's time to take questions and answers. What do you think, Deirdre?
Yes, that's fine, Una.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to taking any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Just,
Any
will I stop the
questions from
share?
anyone?
Yeah.
Any questions?
I had one, Una, which was, have you had any student feedback yet on the system? How have students found it?
Yes, well, we had a pilot last May where we actually got volunteers, and one of them actually was Juan, believe it or not, because we were having difficulty getting volunteers at that stage of the year, as you can imagine. He felt that the pronunciation, the inbuilt pronunciation, H5P's feedback needed to be refined, that it wasn't really at a stage where, you know, for example, if you pronounce a word and it's slightly wrong, if you, so long as you're making yourself understood, that's the main, communication is the main objective of the exchange. So they think that that needs to be refined. Otherwise, the feedback was quite good. We only had 6 volunteers. Now, we haven't actually rolled this out, Deirdre, yet. I think what we need is some kind of scaffolding for these learning pathways so that students know they're there and that they can sign up for them. So maybe that's something that we can explore. If there's anybody out there who has any ideas for widening access to this so that more students actually have the opportunity to avail of it.
Thank you, Una, and thank you very much for your talk as well.
Thank you.
So the next talk is Paul Curran. Hello, Paul, you're very welcome. So Paul is NTutor Project Coordinator for Staff Capabilities, and his talk is What Does Digital Transformation Look Like in the Institute of Art, Design and Technology, Dún Laoghaire, as it moves towards a university for the creative industries. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. So thanks everybody for coming to the talk and those online. So I've narrowed the title since I submitted the abstract to 3 lessons. We've drawn a number of lessons from an exercise we did as part of the staff development plan and the training needs analysis we did for NTutor at IADT. So I'll go into that. So I'm sure everyone at this stage has heard about NTutor, knows a lot about it. A number of the speakers have been a part of the project as I am. I'll just draw your attention to the fact that one of the themes is digital transformation. And I've always understood it really, that digital transformation as one of the themes, it really does underpin a lot of the other ones. Certainly that's the approach we've taken at IADT. And that has informed the approach I'm about to detail. So as I mentioned, one of the deliverables under Stream 2 of NTutor was to develop a training needs analysis and a staff development plan arising out of that. We took a slightly different approach at IADT to most of our colleagues. We had only just completed our kinship review in 2023. The final report was only in December 2023. So an awful lot of surveying of staff had been done, quite detailed stuff, and at a scale and depth that we would find hard to replicate, just as the NTutor team within IADT. And we also didn't see much point in replicating it if there was better stuff there. And it saved us some time, let's be honest, to lean on some of the reports that were there. So rather than issuing our own survey, we went through a process of collating reports that had been done. So the Keynes review I've sort of emphasized there because it was the most important and the most recent and the most comprehensive. But there were other documents as well that we reviewed, and some of them going back a little way. The index survey was 2019, but it was a useful pre-COVID snapshot of technology use at IADT. And I suppose I'd been involved in analysing some of the data on that, so I knew it quite well. But it was nice to have a pre-COVID snapshot. So we took those, collated them, and developed a report. And I have a few copies of that if you want to see what we came up with. But we identified 9 institutional learning pathways, and that again was I suppose achieving a deliverable of the NTutor project to address it in that way. And one of these, of course, was digital transformation, which is unsurprising as it's one of the themes it transferred through as a specific pathway. But as I said, it essentially underpinned a lot of the other ones, the approach we took. What I'm presenting now is a reduced version of a longer presentation I've given to our staff and to our management. And it's specifically focusing on the digital transformation piece. But again, to repeat myself, it underpins a lot of the other work. So the first lesson was about consistency and how consistency is crucial, and consistency for staff and for students. So our students have, almost every time they've been surveyed, in some form, the message of them preferring consistency comes through. So consistency in how things are presented to them, consistency of the use of technology by staff. So there's some data. This is back from the pre-COVID snapshot with the index survey. And if we look at that in particular, this is the use of technology. So again, some of the specific technologies, it doesn't include things we've added since then because it's a number of years ago, but the message, it's been repeated by subsequent surveys too, is that they prefer when they're lecturing the program team for their program is consistent in its use of technology. This is repeated many times. That's just one example. One of the things we did to try to address this was we developed what we call the hub. So we essentially rebranded our Blackboard instance as the hub. This is how it looked last year. NTutor has paid for a web designer to tighten the design there. We're the Institute of Art, Science, Technology, and our president is a graphic designer, so we have to get these things right. This was my best effort last summer, but we've since brought in some professionals. It looks slightly different, tightened up the white space, a bit more even. But the idea was to bring together a lot of things that students are given. So when they register, the practice for years had been for them to receive a very long email with an awful lot of information in it. And often the most important pieces of that information maybe get buried by some of the other things. Things like parking can follow when they get here. They first need to register. And so we tried to glean some of that, take it out of the email and put it here and send them here first and bring them through the registration process from there. And that was just one example of trying to put more consistency on their experience. This is a case study here. I won't go into it. There's a bit more detail in the document, but this was about building the hub and the process we went through in doing it. So it involved bringing together representatives of different teams from across the Institute and looking at the registration process, and it led to us developing the hub. And it's interesting that, like, for years, each department had worked on the assumptions that what the other departments required of them didn't change. And there were some assumptions identified by this process that were no longer true, and we could actually make a lot of efficiencies just by talking to each other and realizing that certain things didn't have to be the way they had always been. Here's just a few statistics about how the success of that. So registrations improved. What we defined as a late registration, that number was down. The alternative formats that students could generate through the hub, just an accessibility piece that we integrated. There's just a statistic there about how frequently that was done. And then I picked out a cohort of students here who were from programs that tended not to use Blackboard. So I'll go into this now in more detail, but over COVID, a practice emerged from programs who face-to-face programs that hadn't really been making use of the VLE in the first place were using Microsoft Teams more so, and in the emergency environment of COVID, we facilitated that. But even those students whose lecturing staff were continuing with those preferences were still going to the Blackboard homepage, rebranded as the hub, and the statistic was very impressive, up over 3,000% from the previous cohort the previous year. And we took that as evidence that they were finding it useful to the other material that we had put there as opposed to their core academic material. This leads me, though, to a good question, I suppose, that arose for us, is we were facilitating the use of two different VLEs, essentially, with Blackboard, which powered our hub, and then Microsoft Teams. And can there be only one? Did we have to pick one and just move everybody towards it? Or were we going to continue facilitating our staff having diverging preferences? And of course, our lesson about consistency would suggest that we needed to have only one. Spoiler alert, though, we found a way to integrate them. What we found by looking at this and by talking to our staff is that the reason some of them were using the VLE to a greater extent before COVID was the same reason that others preferred in general to use Teams. The programs were of a different nature, and some of them had a bit more cross-modular collaboration inherently. We have subjects like art and film, where even though we had been creating courses on Blackboard for each module, really the staff, like it was a team of staff who would have worked across all of those, and the practice of using channels within Teams lent itself more easily to their pre-existing practice, and our practice of creating separate courses for Blackboard lent itself well to other courses like, say, psychology and courses in the humanities and enterprise. But we've developed, I suppose, ways of integrating both, which I'll detail now. So this brought me to lesson 2, which is that consistency should not mean conformity. And I just show you an example here. As I described, our practice tended to be for some programs, those who tended to prefer Teams, they generally worked with a single instance of Teams and with separate channels for different discussions and lectures moving across a number of them sometimes. And other ones tended to use, those who preferred to work with separate modules tended to like the Blackboard functionality, with the odd exception, and often this would be a lecturer who worked across different departments. And we developed templates within the hub that accommodated that. So what would be presented in the hub to students whose lecturing staff prefer to use Teams were instructions about how to use Teams and directions on how to get there. And Blackboard themselves have integrated with Teams, so it's simple, click a button now and it creates a team in your tenant, so long as you've connected them, and populates a team with the class roster from that class. And so students can move back and forth between the two quite seamlessly. So that's how we've approached it now this year, and last year was to try and marry the two platforms together and encourage, I suppose, both cohorts of lecturers to learn about the benefits of how the other half work, and try and put a bit more consistency on our practice while respecting the pedagogical divergences that do exist. My third lesson then was about how the campus is part of the digital landscape. And you'll have seen this around ATU, how NTutor has been investing in the digital ecosystem of the campus. We've been doing the same, and I've noticed you've got similar pods in this building. I'm not sure if they were funded by NTutor, but certainly our ones were. And we see these as connecting to the digital ecosystem, because we've been highlighting on the hub the ability to screen record and capture videos with a single click. And these booths lend themselves to that practice too, and we're trying to encourage our lecturers to use them for that and for meetings. And we've also developed recording facilities around our campus, and I've seen similar things upstairs here. We've also been scanning our campus, so we acquired a Matterport camera, which has some pedagogical use for us, separate from our campus, but we used it to scan our campus. That's our library there. We're using that for wayfinding on some screens, which I'm about to show you. That's just playing a video, just showing how you can manipulate it. We developed an app using Microsoft Power Apps to allow staff and students to book space in those booths. And this was I suppose, dipping our toe in the water with the use of Power Apps. And the great benefit of it is that it's already connected into Outlook and the Office 365 environment. So when you go to book it, you see that you already have events in your calendar to which you can attach a room, and we don't have to transfer people to a new calendar or anything like that. It's the one they're already using. So we've invested in some training to look at the wider suite of the Microsoft Power Platform, and very happy to talk to people about that. I know we're not supposed to assume that there will be an NTutor 2, but we all hope that there will be, and it's something that some of us have talked about. Maybe collectively we could invest in this and get some consultancy assistance. But some of the programs here that we see potential for ourselves at Power BI to develop dashboards with live information, with Power Automate for automating some of our processes. And again, the major benefit, like, we're already quite invested in this ecosystem already, so it seems like the natural way to go as opposed to some of the alternatives. We've also broadened this out to some of our digital kiosks around campus. So again, some of these are acquired with NTutor funding. This is a mock-up, but the live one is being unveiled on Monday coming, and that is running a Microsoft Power app. So we've designed it so that the visual look is consistent across the student hub and those apps, and also some of the content behind it is connected. We're using Microsoft Lists and trying to, I suppose, divest the authority to actually make updates on various sections to the relevant member staff, rather than them centralizing and sending us graphics that need to be reformatted and text. So that is running a Microsoft Canvas Power app. I'm happy to talk about how that works. And again, just a message of consistency So our student hub looks like those screens, and try to see that there's a blend between the two. And finally, our next project, which hopefully will be ready before Christmas, is to do something similar to our staff intranet. So I mentioned that we have graphic design expertise and IDT management, and they're making sure that we get it right. So hopefully before Christmas we'll have it right. But the basic principle to incorporate equivalent resources for staff in the same way. So the 3 lessons: consistency is crucial, but consistency should not mean conformity, and the campus is part of the digital landscape. So that is me. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul, for a very interesting presentation. Any questions? I have one, maybe just have you any staff feedback on current changes, and especially around the consistency element of the use of Blackboard and Teams?
So we tried to sort of preempt that, and the very first thing we did when we launched this, and this is really an adaptation of my initial presentation, was to engage staff. So we ran a number of focus groups on different topics. Some about the staff intranet, some about the teaching and learning facing resources. And it was like first and foremost to get their input and to tailor what we did based on their feedback. But that there was also a bit of getting buy-in, that they were made aware that we were looking at these changes, and that we valued their support. And it also got us a few engagement metrics for the N-Tutor project. No harm in that.
Any other questions?
Thank you for this presentation, impressive work. So do you use Microsoft, do your lecturers use Microsoft Teams for teaching, like as a classroom environment?
Some of them would, certainly, yeah, and definitely during COVID, yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, we've actually, we had been using Blackboard Collaborate through Blackboard, and like it has changed. I suppose the contract was it was bought out by this group Class, and that has changed already. But we've actually begun the steps of moving towards Class for Teams, just to try and bring that consistency as well. So the lecturers who are using that will end up using an environment that's not massively different from what other students are using, and the skill set in supporting it and also in using it is more transferable, and the experience for students is more consistent. So always about convergence.
Just to share some of our experience, we've some of our faculty members use Teams for teaching, but one issue we've run into is that whatever work was submitted in Teams, it's hard to archive it or copy over.
Yes.
So if you want to use that content, that's why we now it integrates wonderfully with LMS. So we mostly use it for meetings, office hours, and that kind of stuff.
And that's our recommendation too. Is that it's best used as a communication tool, and that really it's superior to Blackboard in that sense, but that our recommendations are to use Blackboard for assessment. Now, in practice, we've a way to go to get everyone to actually follow those recommendations, and there's a little bit of nudging going on. At some point, we may disable that feature on Teams.
Yeah, that's what we did.
But it's unfortunately, like we try to work with things where we, like on Blackboard, say, to discourage certain features because we wanted to encourage some. You could disable them by default, but the option for the individual lecturer who was quite invested in them to re-enable them was still there. With that feature on Teams, it's turning it off for the entire tenant.
Right.
And so we haven't done that yet. We may, I suppose. I don't want to say publicly that we definitely will, but yeah, that's the option. But our recommendation has been to use the other platform. And like Zane mentioned yesterday about incorporating you know, the student declaration and things like that into the submission portal.
Right.
We've done that on Blackboard, and we kind of can't do that on Teams, and we don't want to invest, I suppose, in Teams because we discourage it. And so another reason why we're directing everybody to use the other portal for assessment, and getting to a genuine hybrid model for all staff rather than in two separate cohorts operating in different ways.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So our next and final talk is by Anastasia, and that's another online.
Thank you.
Hello, Anastasia. You're very welcome. So I'm very pleased to introduce Anastasia Platonava, and she's a student at the Technological University for the Shannon, and her talk is Exploring Blockchain Technology for Transformative Digital Education in Higher Education. You're very welcome, Anastasia. Thank you.
Thank you very much for an introduction. So I will, good afternoon, everyone. I will talk to you about blockchain technology and its power and potential to transform the education sector. My own research, PhD research, is about blockchain technology in education. And I assume most of you here are today from academia or maybe industry sector. So I actually wanted to ask with a quick question, do you even remember the time when online education was not even a thing? When Zoom or Teams, were not even into being? So I would love to bring you back to 15 years ago. And we are in 2009. And myself personally, I was in a very tricky situation. I was studying in 2 different countries, 2 different universities at the same time. But you might think, well, that's pretty normal, pretty usual. She's some sort of a digital nomad, living in one country and studying online in a different one. But the reality is that that's not true. Online education in 2009 didn't even exist. And my own understanding of digital education or online education was maybe sending some emails to my lectures, And when you think about it, Zoom came into being in 2011, Teams, which we're using also very often these days, 2017. But we started using these online platforms only in 2020, when COVID hit the world, and it gave a boost to online and digital education. And that was the time when I started diving into online education, digital transformation, and blockchain. And you can clearly see that digital transformation in 2020, it's kind of boosted from 0 to 100%. But there are still some challenges which exist in the education sector. And myself as a student and as someone who worked part-time in the education sector, I faced these challenges myself personally. So these are not all the challenges, but I just put some on slides so to give you an understanding of what I mean. Let me start with degree verification and credentialing. There is, at the moment, there is a problem of degree mills and fake degrees. Degree mills, they are institutions which for the money provide people with fake degrees or paper. This is one part of the problem. And another part of the problem is that universities or educational institutions, they are quite conservative and traditional, and changes happen, innovations happen, but it takes time. So most of our graduation parchments and documents in many countries and in many institutions are still in a paper-based format, what makes it very easy and opens a door to degree for fraud and tampering. Interoperability, educational systems. In universities, we have different softwares, different programs, such as Moodle for students and lecturers, or maybe Banner for admin purposes, or maybe Aggresso for financial departments. And these programs and softwares, they don't really communicate well with each other, which sometimes, involves, it has results and consequences on student lectures and everything else. Also, there is a problem with professional and learning development, with track of learning and professional development among students and individuals, meaning that, for example, myself, I have been studying in different countries, different educational systems. I did internships, part-time education. I have some online badges and micro credentials, but there is no one unified system to put all this information together. And you may think, well, we have online CVs or usual CVs or even LinkedIn. But the reality is that, for example, LinkedIn, it's just a showcase of your achievements. It's basically the information which you want to be there. And there is no proof that this information is correct. And let's be honest, not many people put the failures in their academic or professional CV. So when I was experiencing these challenges and when I was looking into the education sector, blockchain technology came to my mind. So let me introduce blockchain to you. So as the name indicates, blockchain, it's a chain of blocks, which has information in every block. It can be numbers, text, audio, or maybe images. Blockchain is a technology. I understand it's hard to maybe visualize something what cannot be touched or seen, but let's think of it as a chain of blocks, or maybe a notebook, a usual paper diary. And imagine that you have this diary, and when you're writing something, everyone else at the table see this information and has access to this diary. And the main feature of this diary is that information which you write cannot be changed in there, and it cannot be hidden. So whatever you write, everyone can see it, no one can delete it. So this is blockchain. It's a safe registry or safe journal which is shared, meaning distributed among many participants on the network, and it's secure because the information there cannot be touched or seen, or in other words, we say immutable. And what is important, there is no one owner there. There is no one central authority to control this network. So once again, it's shared or distributed, and it's immutable, it's secure. So the main goal of blockchain technology is to secure digital information online. So when it comes to applications in education, I created this diagram and I put together all the, some of the potential and present applications of blockchain. And would like to highlight once again that there are applications of blockchain in many different industries, mostly in supply chain and finance. We will see the biggest number of applications. And because education sector is conservative and traditional, innovations in this sector comes a bit with a delay. So we'll start with present applications, maybe academic credentialing. So some institutions are using blockchain-based credentialing platforms to upload student records, not only graduation parchments, but grades, information about the students online for secure storage and further verification. Some universities are using blockchain for student funding or payments in a way that they accept tuition fees in the form of cryptocurrency, or they also accept donations in the form of cryptocurrency. When it comes to potential applications of blockchain in education, it's also important to mention that not all potential applications can be here on the slide, because this area of implementation is still under research and there is not so much space on this slide. But I like digital rights management as a potential application. So Imagine you are a student, a researcher, and you create something, and someone just steals this something from you. It can be a piece of work, a piece of art, or even your dissertation. With digital rights management, your piece of art, your creation can be securely stored online and saved. So benefits here would be copyright protection, of course, but it doesn't work only for the students. It can also work for the lectures, because lectures create a lot of educational content for the students, and then it's just shared online without any further communication. So lectures don't even know where their documents and files went at the end. So if we talk about use cases in particular, so academic credentialing will be the area which is the most popular in education. I put 4 projects which are at the moment are famous in Europe and beyond. So BlockCerts would be the first project example of blockchain-based credentialing platform from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So students have access to their diplomas through the app, and they can share it through a link among with their future employers, maybe, or parents or friends with whom they want. BC Diploma has the same format, but it's a project which was implemented by the University of Lille in France. BlockCore is an initiative from the University of Nicosia in Cyprus, and actually this university is one among the first which started accepting crypto as a payment. And at Q, it's actually an Irish-based initiative, so IOB, it's a college recognized by UCD, using blockchain-based credentialing platform for the employees who are working in financial services. And because they need a constant accreditation, certifications, and these regular updates, this platform helps to be up to date with reskilling and upskilling of the employees. That's very simple step of how it's done. And we have 3 parties. We have university, learner, and verifier. Verifier can be potential employer. So university certifies a document, any document, uploads it on a blockchain platform. Learner, student, or graduate, in our case, can share a digital link with a potential employer or any other person. And it's safe, it's secure, easy, it doesn't require any papers or money, and it's very fast. It's instant verification of the qualification. This is my own diploma. I just wanted to share it with you so you understand how it looks like. There is a link on top in the left corner, and that's the link I'm sharing. It's also on my CV, so anyone can check my achievement, my accomplishment in real time. It says who issued the certificate, and all the details are there. So I touched benefits of blockchain technology a bit, so you understand that it's an instant verification. So if student, let's say from India, wants to go and study in Ireland, it takes 1 second, a few seconds for the university in Ireland to check the qualification in India and make a decision on acceptance of the student. If you do it without blockchain, it may take days and even weeks. It involves a lot of money. So cost reduction is also one of the benefits. Overall, it leads to the increase of data integrity in the education sector and global recognition, as I have already mentioned. And what is one of the most important thing is the person whose certificate, for example, is uploaded is the owner of credentials, in our case, student. So students are the owners of their own credentials. And at the end, I would like to say that blockchain technology, as any other emerging technology, is not a solution to every challenge and every problem. And we need to be very clear which problem we want to solve. and we need to very carefully analyze which technology is the most suitable for solving this. But in any case, I am a truly believer that collaboration between academia, industry, government, and society, this is a key to success of implementing any emerging technology, including blockchain. And I think that's it from me for today. Thank you very much. And if you want to ask me any questions or follow up on my topic or provide me with any advice, I would be happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Anastasia, for a final and very interesting, again, presentation. Any
Thank you.
questions? So that's the final speaker, isn't it? Thank you very much, everybody here in the room, and also everybody who attended online. And thank you to all the speakers for 5 very interesting presentations. Thank you.